Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. Buying a dream home should have been the start of a peaceful life. For Ryan West, it became a battleground. When a ruthless HOA leader tries to steal his house using lies, threats, and corrupt cops, one man fights back with cameras, evidence, and a war they never saw coming. They say buying a house is one of the most stressful things you can do. I used to laugh at that. I'd been an engineer, worked in cybersecurity, juggled a dozen complex systems while half the network burned. Buying a house sounded like a vacation in comparison. That was before we moved into the house on Fernwood Drive. Before Karen, my name's Ryan West, 38, husband to an endlessly patient woman, father to an 8-year-old daughter who thinks the world is made of trees and backyard fairies. A month ago, we finally moved into our dream home. A beautiful 2-story colonial with green shutters and wraparound porch, nestled at the edge of a forest in the suburbs of South Carolina. No traffic noise, no nosy landlords, just us, the trees, and a piece of sky I could finally call mine. The first few weeks were bliss. Morning coffee with birdsong, evenings grilling in the backyard while fireflies lit up my daughter's laughter. The neighbors were polite enough, mostly older couples and young families. Then there was Karen. You don't really notice a Karen at first. They camouflage well. Her lawn was immaculate, her smile rigid, and her dog wore a designer vest. She came by on day 3, holding a binder and wearing a blazer like she was running for office. "Welcome to Willow Springs," she chirped, handing me a thick folder. "Here are the HOA guidelines. You're going to want to read that front to back." I blinked. "Sorry, I think there's been a mistake. My lot isn't part of the HOA. It's just outside the boundary line." Her smile tightened a millimeter. "Oh, that's what the last owners said too. But everything in this loop is under Willow Springs. You'll find it's easier to cooperate." I smiled, thanked her, and tossed the binder into the back of the pantry next to some unopened paint cans. I didn't think much of it, just another overzealous HOA rep trying to expand her little empire. I wasn't worried. I had the deed, the survey, the whole legal cocktail, and she had a folder. But things shifted about a month in. It started with the garage. I'd gone out to grab a toolbox and found empty Gatorade bottles on my workbench. At first, I thought I'd left them there. Then I saw a torn energy bar wrapper in the corner, one I didn't buy. That afternoon, I noticed muddy footprints leading from the side gate to the garage door. I checked the motion sensor. Nothing. The battery had been pulled. The next day, more garbage showed up. Someone had clearly been using the garage, probably just as a place to chill out. But it wasn't me, or my family. Later that week, I checked the camera feed from the doorbell. That's when I saw him. A young guy in his 20s, buzz cut, military backpack, just strolling through my side yard like it was a public park. He walked into the garage, stayed about 30 minutes, then walked out drinking one of my sodas. No forced entry, no lockpicking, just casual trespassing. I was stunned, not angry, not yet, just confused. Who the hell does that? The answer came the next day, in the form of a phone call. "Mr. West," said the voice, clipped and familiar. "This is Karen Brooks. We need to discuss something of importance. I assume you've met my son." "Your son?" I asked, already feeling my stomach tighten. "Thomas, or Tommy. He's recently returned from military service and is adjusting. He's taken a liking to your property." "I've noticed," I said coldly. "Well, here's the thing," she continued, as if discussing a garden swap. "That house, technically, falls within the Willow Springs area. Our HOA guidelines clearly state that all unassigned properties are subject to redistribution based on community need." I waited. Surely this was some twisted attempt at a joke. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it would be best if your family prepared to vacate. Tommy needs stability, and the HOA is ready to facilitate a transfer. We've drafted a preliminary occupancy proposal." "You want me to give you my house?" I said, deadpan. "To give him the house? You've only been here a month. We've lived in this community for over 20 years. There's precedent." "Karen," I said slowly, like I was talking to a malfunctioning printer, "I own this house. I paid for it. It's not unassigned. I have a legal title in my name, with county registration and everything." There was a pause on the other end, then a sigh. "You can show me whatever papers you like, Mr. West, but the HOA has its own internal documentation. And frankly, this is bigger than just you." Tommy has earned this." I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just walked out to the garage, sat down on the workbench, and stared at the soda can he'd left behind. For the first time since we'd moved in, I didn't feel safe. Not scared, just invaded. This wasn't some dumb neighbor argument about fence height or mailbox colors. Someone had just told me to leave my home. Someone thought they had the right to it. That night, I opened the pantry and pulled out the binder she gave me. HOA rules, contact sheets, a bunch of vague bylaws written like they were copied from a cult handbook. None of it applied to my property. I made photocopies of my deed, highlighted the boundary lines, and left them by the front door, just in case. I didn't know what Karen was planning next, but I had a sick feeling this wasn't over, not even close. The next morning, I printed out 3 copies of the title deed, just to be safe. One for the kitchen, one for the glove box, and one I shoved into a manila folder marked just in case and stuck behind the cereal cabinet. It felt paranoid, but considering Karen's last call, I wasn't about to leave anything to chance. I figured I should handle this like a reasonable adult. So I wrote a polite but firm letter to Karen, attached a copy of my deed and the county zoning map, and dropped it in her mailbox myself. Her front yard looked like something out of a catalog. White gravel borders, trimmed hedges, little metal signs reminding you to smile because you're on camera. No smiley face stickers, though. Just a heavy silence when I slipped the envelope through her door slot. I went home and tried to convince myself that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That evening, as I took the trash cans out, I noticed something strange. Our recycling bin, which I always left against the side gate, had been moved into the middle of the driveway. Its contents were gone, replaced with half-eaten sandwiches and beer bottles. It reeked. The security camera picked up Tommy again, dragging the bin and laughing on the phone as he did it. I could even hear him mutter, "Let's see how they like this HOA welcome." I didn't bother calling Karen. What was the point? 2 days later, a manila envelope arrived in our mailbox, marked with the HOA's return address. Inside was a printed letter titled Notice of Unauthorized Occupancy, Property Under Review. Apparently, according to their records, my house was in a transitional zone pending assignment, and I had failed to register proper ownership with Willow Springs HOA. I read the thing 3 times just to confirm I wasn't hallucinating. That same afternoon, I was mowing the lawn when a patrol car rolled slowly down the street and stopped in front of my driveway. 2 officers stepped out, one older guy with a clipboard and a younger one with wraparound sunglasses that probably cost more than my grill. The younger one approached with his hand resting just lightly on his belt. "Sir," he said, "we received a call about potential unlawful occupancy at this address. Do you have identification and proof of ownership?" I blinked. "You're kidding." He wasn't. I went inside, grabbed the folder with all the documents, and walked back out. The older officer flipped through the deed and zoning paperwork, making little grunting noises of acknowledgement. "Looks legit to me," he muttered, but the younger one wasn't satisfied. "We were told the title transfer might not have gone through yet. The complainant insists the property falls under HOA management, which—" "No," I cut him off. "It doesn't. I checked with the county before I bought the place. I've got the survey lines marked. I've got it on tape." Karen herself even admitted that she thinks it belongs to the HOA. The officer gave me a look like I'd just insulted his grandmother. "Sir, we don't need commentary on neighbors. If you're lawfully residing here, great. Just understand that these kinds of disputes can get messy. We'll be filing a report." He handed me a yellow copy of something called an Initial Occupancy Concern Form, which sounded like a real term someone made up in a fever dream. I watched them drive off, and there she was. Karen, standing at the edge of her lawn in her white tracksuit, arms crossed, watching me like I was an uninvited guest at her wedding. She didn't wave. She didn't smirk. Just watched, quiet and confident, like the next move was already in play. That night, I installed 2 new cameras, one above the back fence and one pointed directly at the driveway. I swapped passwords on the garage keypad and added motion alerts to my phone. My wife asked me if we were overreacting. I wanted to say yes, but the truth was, I didn't feel in control anymore. A day later, I came home from the store and found a folded paper taped to our mailbox post. HOA meeting, emergency session regarding property transfer dispute. The address, Karen's house. The kicker, they listed my house as the agenda item. Transfer of Fernwood property to long-term community member. I didn't go, but I damn well started recording everything. The emergency HOA meeting came and went without me. I didn't care to hear a room full of retirees and lawn-measuring tyrants vote on whether my legally purchased home should be handed over like a raffle prize, but I did care about the fallout. The next day, a neighbor, Brian from 3 houses down, approached me during my morning jog. "Hey," he said, glancing over his shoulder like we were in some suburban spy thriller. "That meeting last night? It wasn't good." I paused, pulled out my earbuds. "They passed a motion," he continued, lowering his voice. "Karen claimed she had documentation that your house was under HOA jurisdiction, said the county records were in dispute, and that she'd already begun the transition process." I laughed. I had to. You can't just transition someone's house like it's gender reassignment paperwork. He didn't laugh back. "She said she had legal precedent. She used the phrase community reclamation. Honestly, I don't think half the room understood what she meant, but they nodded along. By that afternoon, there were new signs posted on the sidewalk near my driveway. Fernwood property under HOA review. Please respect transfer process. Someone, probably Tommy, even spray-painted fraud on my trash can. But the real kicker came 3 days later, at exactly 7:42 in the morning. I was eating cereal. My daughter was watching cartoons. My wife was scrolling through emails. Just a regular Thursday. Then the doorbell rang, followed by 3 loud knocks. I opened the door to find 2 uniformed officers and a man in a navy blue blazer with a Willow Springs HOA patch sewn onto the chest like it was some kind of militia uniform. He had a clipboard. "Of course, Mr. West," said the older officer, "we're here regarding a complaint of unlawful occupancy." I almost laughed again. "You're kidding." "Again?" "This time," said the man in the blazer, "we have documentation indicating a transfer of oversight for this property to the Willow Springs HOA. You've been notified of this. We're here to begin the process of peaceful transition." "Peaceful transition," I repeated, blinking. My daughter peeked around the corner. My wife stood up behind me. "Sir," said the second officer, more tense now, "we'll need you to come outside with your keys." That's when I knew they weren't bluffing. I grabbed the folder, the one with all my documents, and walked outside, hands steady but fists clenched. "This is my property," I said, flipping to the title deed. "Registered with the county. No liens, no easements. It's outside the HOA boundary. This," I pointed at the blue-patched man, "is someone playing dress-up." The officer took the paperwork and stepped aside to look through it. Meanwhile, the HOA rep, let's just call him Discount Hitler, started taking pictures of my porch, my garden, even the kids' trampoline like he was cataloging items for removal. "You're trespassing," I told him flatly. He didn't answer. After several minutes of tense silence, the older officer handed the papers back. "We'll need to verify this with county records. For now, we're not taking action, but you should prepare to vacate in the event your claim isn't validated." "My claim?" I snapped. "This isn't a coupon code. It's a damn deed." The officer didn't respond. They walked off, leaving a printed notice taped to my front door. "Occupancy under investigation." I tore it down before my daughter could see it. That evening, I installed 3 more cameras. One in the mailbox, one under the porch, one pointed at the side gate. I set up remote backups and had alerts sent to both my phone and my laptop. I wasn't just dealing with a power-tripping HOA anymore. This was a hostile occupation attempt, and apparently at least 2 cops were willing to play along. I called Alex. He picked up on the second ring. "You were right," I said. "They brought cops. Tried to force a peaceful transition." He swore under his breath. "Record everything. I'll be there tomorrow." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Already started. After we hung up, I sat on the porch for a while, watching the neighborhood. A few blinds shifted. A few cars passed slower than usual. I didn't know who was on my side. Hell, I didn't know if sides even mattered anymore. All I knew was that someone wanted my house badly enough to lie, threaten, and manipulate public officers to get it. And I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak in the house made me reach for my phone to check the cameras. At one point around 2 a.m., I saw a raccoon scurry across the lawn and almost had a heart attack. Paranoia wasn't a strong enough word. I was on high alert, and for good reason. The next evening, just after dusk, I noticed headlights flicker through the trees behind the house. There's no road back there, just an old fire lane that ends in the woods. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the back deck. That's when I heard the gravel crunch. Two black SUVs, no plates, rolled up the side path between my lot and the vacant strip beyond the fence. They stopped right at the edge of my yard. Doors opened. Tommy stepped out first, followed by two other men. Both burly, both wearing hoodies pulled up to hide their faces. One of them was carrying a toolbox. Not the good kind. Tommy waved. "Evening. Hope we're not disturbing anything." "You're trespassing," I called out, already dialing the non-emergency line on my phone. He smiled, walked forward a few paces, and casually gestured to the house like it was a fixer-upper he'd just put a bid on. "We're just here to assess the layout. My mom said we might need to move in sooner than expected." I stepped down from the deck and stood between him and the back patio. "You have 3 seconds to get off my property," I said, "or I call the cops." He laughed. "Go ahead. Maybe try the same guys from last time. They seemed pretty understanding." I didn't even respond. I called. While the phone rang, one of his friends circled around to the side gate, clearly trying to find a way in. That's when my wife flipped on the floodlights from the inside. The whole backyard lit up like a stadium. The men flinched, shielding their eyes. "Leave," I said again, voice low. They hesitated, exchanged looks, then slowly got back in their vehicles and backed out through the trees. Not a word, just taillights disappearing into darkness. The dispatcher said a unit would swing by, but no one came. I wasn't surprised. I didn't even bother filing a report. I had something better, the whole event recorded. Every face, every licenseless vehicle, every move. The next morning, I called Alex and told him everything. He arrived at noon, still looking like a federal agent despite having left the service years ago. Slacks, leather binder, mirrored sunglasses. My wife called him FBI Ken. I just called him our best chance. He reviewed the footage in silence, then nodded. That was a probing run. They were seeing how far they could push you without actual charges. Smart in a disgusting kind of way. They were ready to break in, I said. "If I hadn't been outside..." He didn't reply, just made notes. We set up an encrypted cloud storage for all the footage, backed it to 2 hard drives, and prepared a full timeline of incidents. He started drafting letters, not just to the HOA, but to the county sheriff's office, the real estate board, and a few contacts he still had in state legal channels. That evening, I hosted a casual neighborhood barbecue in our backyard. Not a party, a strategic move. We grilled burgers, made lemonade, and invited half the street, everyone except Karen, of course. People came. Some were just there for the food. Others, curious. One older woman, Janine, leaned in and whispered they tried to do the same to the Clarks before they moved out. Karen told everyone they were delinquent on dues. They didn't even have an HOA account. By the end of the night, I had 15 signatures from neighbors on a support petition. Alex took them, grinned, and said, "This isn't just a paper trail anymore. This is community evidence." Then came the final straw of the week. The mailbox camera caught Karen meeting up with 2 uniformed officers, same ones from before, behind her house. She handed them 2 manila envelopes. They flipped through the contents, nodded, shook her hand. That same night, those same officers drove by our house 4 separate times between midnight and 3 a.m. Headlights off. I watched it all in real time. Every time the motion alert pinged, I took screenshots, videos, logs. Alex said, "She's paying them." Or they're in on it for free favors. Either way, it's actionable now. I believed him, but I didn't feel safer. Not yet. The thing about building a case is that it's boring until it suddenly isn't. You spend days scanning footage, compiling documents, chasing signatures, and getting ignored by half the people you contact. And then one domino falls, and it all starts moving faster than you can track. Alex was relentless. He filed public records requests, sent certified letters to the HOA demanding a cease and desist, and even submitted an inquiry to the county about the supposed transitional zone Karen kept mentioning. The answer came back within 48 hours. There was no transitional zone. My property had never been within Willow Springs HOA jurisdiction, not even by mistake. Meanwhile, I noticed something new on our side fence. A camera, not mine. It was a small, battery-powered unit zip-tied to a tree branch, pointed directly at our kitchen window. Someone had been watching us. Alex removed it with gloves, popped out the SD card, and reviewed the footage. It had been recording for 6 days, dumping files remotely to an external IP. We traced it back to a signal registered to Karen's house. No warrant, no notice, just full-on surveillance. "She's escalating," Alex muttered. "Good. That means she's getting sloppy. We didn't waste time. Alex drafted a preliminary complaint, a 32-page document naming Karen, Tommy, and the HOA board as co-conspirators in a campaign of harassment, illegal surveillance, attempted property seizure, and civil rights violations. He also included the 2 officers in the complaint, by name. Then out of nowhere, I received another envelope. No return address, no stamps, just hand-delivered into the mailbox. Inside, a formal notice from the HOA declaring that my property would be voluntarily reassigned to accommodate the Housing Stability Initiative for veterans. The letter included a proposed move-out date, a list of compensatory options, none of which involved money, and a line that read, "Failure to comply may result in legal and community-driven enforcement measures." They didn't even try to hide it anymore. This wasn't HOA nonsense. It was a goddamn eviction threat. My wife was furious. She wanted to go straight to the media. I told her not yet. Let them bury themselves first. Alex agreed. Then came the break we didn't expect. A woman showed up at our door late one afternoon. Petite, mid-40s, nervous. She introduced herself as Laura, the HOA's treasurer. She looked over her shoulder 3 times before even stepping onto the porch. "I shouldn't be here," she said, "but I can't do this anymore." She handed Alex a USB stick. That's the internal emails, minutes, Karen's orders, all of it. She didn't stay long. Just long enough to say that Karen had used similar tactics before against a couple that eventually moved away after months of harassment. She said you'd give up too. That everyone does. But you didn't. The emails were gold. Internal board discussions about strategic reclamation, messages between Karen and Tommy coordinating visibility campaigns to make our house look abandoned or unfit. One note even mentioned planting a broken lawn chair in the front yard to imply neglect, as if that somehow nullified a deed. Even worse, there was an email from Karen to the 2 officers using personal email addresses thanking them for their ongoing support in the matter and confirming additional compensation to be finalized post-transition. Alex stared at the screen for a full minute before speaking. This isn't just civil now. This is criminal conspiracy. She bribed cops. She planned to steal your house using falsified documents and social pressure. He forwarded everything to the DA's office. That same day, one of the officers, the younger one with the wraparound shades, pulled up outside the house in an unmarked vehicle. He didn't get out, just sat there for 10 minutes, engine running, then drove off. I flagged the video, sent it to Alex, and saved it on 3 drives. For the first time in weeks, I felt something shifting. They'd played their hand, and now they were exposed. Alex filed the lawsuit on a Tuesday morning. Civil court. 48 pages. We sued Karen personally, the HOA as an organization, the 2 officers by name, and even tossed in a motion to freeze all HOA account activity until the case was resolved. The clerk raised an eyebrow when he saw the list of allegations. "This one's gonna make headlines," he muttered. He wasn't wrong. By Thursday, the story had hit the local paper. Not front page, not yet, but enough to get picked up by a few neighborhood blogs and HOA watchdog forums. One YouTube legal analyst even posted a reaction video titled, "HOA Karen Tries to Seize House. Regrets It Immediately." That one racked up 100,000 views in a day. My inbox flooded with support emails. Some people shared their own HOA horror stories. Others offered to fly in and set up tents on my lawn in solidarity. I politely declined. Then came the media truck. A local news anchor, Sandra something, knocked on our door with a cameraman in tow and asked for a statement. I hesitated, but Alex nodded. "Control the narrative before Karen does." So I gave her a short interview on the porch. I kept it calm, factual, but didn't pull punches. We bought this house legally. We live here legally. And a private organization with no authority tried to take it from us using fraud, intimidation, and even influence over local police. The segment aired that night. They even showed the security footage of Tommy and his buddies skulking around the yard. Suddenly, everyone in the county knew who Karen was. That part felt good, but the storm was just beginning. The sheriff's department issued a public statement saying they were looking into potential misconduct by the officers named in our lawsuit. Internal Affairs opened an investigation. Both officers were temporarily reassigned pending review. In plain English, benched. Meanwhile, Alex filed a motion to obtain HOA financial records. The court granted it. What we found was exactly what we expected. Karen had authorized community improvement stipends that lined up with the dates of her payments to the cops. There were even invoices marked external transition assistance, paid to a Shell LLC registered under Tommy's name. It was textbook corruption, but it wasn't just us noticing anymore. A group of residents, led by that same Janine from the barbecue, started organizing. They called themselves the Willow Springs Fairness Coalition. Cute name, deadly intent. They drafted their own petition calling for Karen's removal and full audit of the HOA. Within 2 days, over 60% of the neighborhood had signed it. And then, almost as if she'd sensed the shift in the air, Karen made one last move. She filed an emergency injunction against us, claiming we were inciting neighborhood unrest, that we'd illegally tampered with HOA property, and, best of all, that my wife and I were intimidating community officials. The judge denied the injunction in 20 minutes. We didn't even have to show up, but the court date for our case was now officially set, 1 month away. And right then, as if to underline how serious things had become, we received an official letter from the county prosecutor. They were launching a formal criminal investigation into the HOA and Karen Brooks personally. It felt surreal, like watching a slow avalanche finally hit the valley. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer, looking at the stars. My daughter was asleep. My wife was reading inside. The cameras blinked quietly, sentinels in the dark. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. But I finally felt like we weren't alone. And for the first time in weeks, Karen wasn't the one calling the shots. The courtroom was packed. I don't know what I expected. A few reporters, maybe a curious neighbor or two. Instead, it looked like half the damn county had shown up. Some were clearly HOA members. Others wore T-shirts that read things like, "Defend property rights," and "Not your house, Karen." Someone even brought a lawn chair and sat in the back with popcorn. The bailiff asked him to leave. He didn't. Karen arrived 20 minutes late, flanked by 2 attorneys who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She wore a tailored blazer, oversized sunglasses, and the smugness of a woman who still believed she'd walk out of there victorious. Tommy wasn't with her. Neither were the 2 cops. They'd been suspended pending criminal review and advised by their counsel to stay home. Alex looked calm. I wasn't. My palms were sweating. My knee wouldn't stop bouncing. My wife squeezed my hand. "Let them hang themselves," she whispered. "We just have to show the rope." The judge, an older man named Halverson, known for his no-nonsense courtroom, called the session to order and began with the civil complaint. Alex stood, handed over our stack of evidence. 200 pages of documents, maps, titles, emails, and financial records, all neatly labeled and tabbed. Then he hit play. The courtroom watched, silent, as the video footage rolled. Tommy in the garage, Karen handing envelopes to uniformed officers, nighttime drive-bys, that ridiculous HOA rep with the clipboard claiming peaceful transition. One by one, every invasion, every manipulation, every ounce of corruption was laid bare. Then came the audio recordings, HOA board meetings where Karen discussed the transfer plan like it was a real estate transaction. My favorite part was when she actually said, "They'll crack before the end of spring." They always do. Spoiler? We didn't. The judge listened, took notes, occasionally raised an eyebrow. Karen's attorney tried to object on the grounds of improper surveillance and contextual ambiguity. The judge shut him down like a broken vending machine. Then Alex introduced the testimony. Laura, the treasurer, took the stand and confirmed everything. The bribes, the pressure, the faked documentation. She even showed emails Karen had deleted, retrieved from backups. The courtroom gasped more than once. Then came Janine. Then Brian. Then Mr. Davis from next door. All of them testifying to a pattern of harassment, manipulation, and abuse of power from Karen and her inner circle. One neighbor even admitted he was told by Karen to just ignore the family at 112 because they'd be gone soon. It was a massacre. Karen didn't say a word the entire time. She just sat there, jaw tight, fingers gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her from disappearing through the floor. When it was over, Judge Halverson removed his glasses and leaned forward. "I've presided over land disputes, title fraud, HOA abuse, and civil harassment cases. This is the first time I've seen all 4 wrapped into one neat package of insanity." He ruled immediately. The HOA was found guilty of overreach, harassment, and civil conspiracy. Karen was held personally liable. The court ordered a $1.8 million payout to us for damages, legal fees, and emotional distress. Immediate removal of Karen from the HOA board. Mandatory audits and external oversight of Willow Springs HOA for the next 5 years. And best of all, Karen Brooks to be taken into custody on charges of fraud, bribery, and unlawful surveillance. The bailiff didn't even wait for the papers. He stood, walked over, and cuffed her right there in the courtroom. Karen looked around, shocked, as if the rules had suddenly stopped applying to her, as if she still couldn't believe that someone like me had beaten someone like her. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. As she was led out, someone in the back started clapping. It spread. The judge banged his gavel once, then gave up. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. We gave one statement: brief, respectful, victorious. No gloating. Alex insisted. But when we got back home, there was a handwritten note taped to our front door. It read, "Welcome home, from the neighborhood." A week after the trial, the street felt different. It wasn't just the weather, though the heat had finally broken, and the Carolina sky seemed cleaner, more open. No, it was something in the air. A tension that had clung to Fernwood Drive for weeks had finally cracked and bled out. People waved when they passed now. Kids played outside again. There was laughter from porches, the occasional sizzle of grills. Our neighborhood, for the first time since we moved in, actually felt like a neighborhood. Karen's house was dark. A for sale sign appeared 2 days after her arrest, planted at a slight angle in the front yard, as if the agent didn't want to linger too long. No one had been in or out since the police finished cataloging the documents and computers inside. Tommy was nowhere to be seen. Rumor was he'd skipped town the day after the verdict, too embarrassed or too smart to stick around. Fine by me. One less shadow to worry about. The HOA was under emergency oversight. A county-appointed trustee stepped in to run it while the audits continued. Alex was even invited to give a statement during the first reform hearing. He declined. "I'm not here to fix their broken toy box," he said. "I'm here to make sure no one ever tries to use it as a weapon again." In her absence, the HOA board voted to remove every bylaw Karen had drafted in the last 10 years. Half of them were nonsense anyway. Stuff about mandatory flagpole angles, shrub height limits, even a clause about visually harmonious patio furniture. Total dictatorship disguised as lawn care. As for me, I was still a little shell-shocked. I won't lie. Even with the payout, even with the vindication, there were nights I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and check the cameras just to be sure. My wife teased me about it, gently. "You've got more surveillance gear than Fort Knox," she'd joke, handing me coffee. "Maybe now we can finally relax?" I wanted to believe it, and slowly I started to. We took some of the settlement and built a screened-in gazebo in the backyard, a kind of quiet celebration space. Neighbors came over, helped raise the frame, shared beers and stories while the kids ran around. We laughed a lot. Not forced laughter, the real kind, the kind you feel in your ribs. One afternoon, Janine from 2 houses over came by with a covered dish and an envelope. Inside were over 50 handwritten thank you notes from residents of Willow Springs, people we barely knew, but who'd been watching, quietly hoping someone would finally stand up to the tyrant in pearls. One note just said, "I thought I was crazy until I saw what she did to you. Thank you for proving I wasn't." Another read, "We never knew your name. Now we won't forget it." I built a small garden near the gazebo. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes, rosemary, a few raised beds for my daughter to dig in. She calls it Victory Row. I didn't name it that. She did. The blog came later. At first, it was just a post, a write-up of the whole ordeal from start to finish on a forum about HOA disputes. It went viral, thousands of comments. Then came the emails, interview requests, podcasts. People wanted advice, wanted justice, wanted to know how the hell to fight back, so I gave them what I could. I called it Defend Your Home USA. It wasn't fancy, just stories, legal tips, a forum, and a list of resources. But within a month, it had over 50,000 subscribers. People wrote in daily, from Florida to California, even a guy in Alaska who said his HOA was trying to ban snowmobiles on private driveways. I told him to buy a camera and a damn good lawyer. And yet, in spite of all that and the support, the settlement, the headlines, the moment that sticks with me the most came on a quiet Thursday night, 2 weeks after the verdict. I was sitting on the hood of my truck, beer in hand, watching the trees sway in the dusk. My wife sat beside me. The kids were in the yard catching fireflies. No noise, no tension, just air, clean and warm. And then, for no reason at all, I laughed. Not the bitter kind, not the tired kind, the good kind, the kind that bubbles up when something finally feels right. My wife looked over. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." She leaned her head on my shoulder. In the distance, a wind chime sang from a neighbor's porch. Somewhere, a dog barked, then gave up. The sky was that perfect shade of blue-gray that means sleep is close. And for the first time since moving into this house, our house, I didn't feel like I had to defend anything. It was over, and we were home.